Hello everyone, the video will begin in just a moment, but I wanted to use now to get across some information. So, as of Thursday of last week, of the time of this video going up, the Unlucky Tug's YouTube channel was terminated. So the entire channel and all of his videos on there just gone. He does have archives of those videos saved, and he is talking directly with someone at Google to try and get his channel back. But as of right now, the channel itself, the growth that it had over the years, and all the comments on all those videos with it are just completely gone. And that is just such a dreadful thing to happen, especially to a guy like him, because, and I don't know if I've made it obvious already or not with my videos on my channel, but that guy is one of, if not the biggest inspiration to me. And I don't think I would have gotten to where I have now. I wouldn't have found this niche that I enjoy, making reviews and video essays around a franchise that is so near and dear to my heart. I don't think I would have found that had it not been for the Unlucky Tug, and getting to meet him in person was one of the best things of what was already an outstanding trip to Wales. And right now he needs our help. He's created a new channel where he plans to re-upload all the archives of the videos that he has saved. If his old channel comes back, he will delete that new channel and go back to his old one. But if his old one doesn't come back, then that new channel is where he will continue to upload, which is must be so incredibly sad for him. But it's unfortunately just the way that it's gotta go. He's not gonna let. He said this in a video explaining the situation of how his YouTube channel got terminated, but he's not going to let YouTube take his passion away from him, and rightfully so. If he enjoys doing this, we've got to help him continue it. So I've linked his new channel in the description, along with the link to his Patreon if you haven't already become a patron of his already. Anything that can support him, either resubscribing to his new channel or supporting him on Patreon, please do that, because he didn't deserve this. He really didn't deserve this happening to him. And to Nick, the Unlucky Tug, if you are watching this video, Godspeed to you, mate. I hope everything turns out for the better, because you deserve it. Before today's video begins, two quick announcements. Firstly, special thank you to Kai Key, the sponsors of today's video. The premier Thomas store where you can find all your favourite Thomas toy brands, Tomy, Ertl, Take and Play, the works really. By using the discount code Luke12, you can save 12% off your next order, regardless if you've already made a purchase on their site. Doing so also supports me and the work I do, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Lastly, I have brought back my Patreon page with a more reasonable layout than before. £1 is just a generous donation, but £3 gets you access to behind the scenes screenshots of my upcoming projects and having your name appear at the end of my videos. Links to this and Kaiki's website in the description. Now then, on with the show. We all know the history of how Thomas the Tank Engine and friends came to be. Britt Allcroft wanted to adapt a series of books that she had fallen in love with that were written by the Reverend Wilbert Awdry. They decided to do so with model trains and handcrafted sets, etc, 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 you know the rest. This was a show designed to bring the pages of the island of Sodor to the TV screen, and over time reached not only across the United Kingdom that the books were born in, but several other countries across the globe. And, whether it was intentional or not, this show clicked with a very specific audience, a group of people feeling alienated in a world of noise and chaos, who found comfort and reassurance in the show. People with autism. What is autism? Autism is a mental disability caused by notable differences in how our brains work. One that affects how we communicate with other people around us and how we behave in different environments. such as struggling to explain how we feel and getting anxious about the mere thought of going to social events, as well as our senses always being dialed up to 100 all the time, and getting sensory overload to different smells, different sounds we're not prepared to deal with. For many kids, it affects how they learn things at school, and not fitting in with others makes them feel isolated. This is where the show comes in. In a market of shows that were trying to be too loud, flashy and high energy for kids in the 80s, and even in today's crowd, Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends was very unique in being a calm, relaxing and charming TV series. This made sense, as the stories originated from books written as bedtime stories, and they perfectly captured that in the show's aesthetic, to a point where the several narrators would read the stories in calm, chilled out voices. There were other factors that appealed to us too. Sometimes we struggle to see how others are feeling, so the characters' faces clearly explained how a character was feeling without them saying anything. Getting too close to someone can make us uncomfortable, so the engines being on separate tracks was, to us, a safe distance. Our high senses meant we pick up on details that others wouldn't, so the detailed sets with additions in the background and foreground to make the railway feel as real as possible made us feel happy for spotting them. So much about this show was very welcoming to us, and the fact the showrunners ran with it meant that we had a series we could get genuinely excited for watching new episodes about. It truly meant the world to us. But one of the strongest factors that I believe the show had, which was appealing to people with autism, was their approach to changing the show each season. It's no secret that people with autism struggle to deal with changes to our days. It's almost stereotypical how well it's known at this point. We like to have routines in our day-to-day lives and become very anxious over the slightest changes. Maybe that's why we are so drawn to trains and, by extension, Thomas. Trains can only go where the rails take them, they run up and down the same lines every day and see the same sights. Their journey is laid out for them. But when it comes to the production of a TV series, just like everyday life, change is inevitable. A new season has to improve what the previous one established. Otherwise, without something new to show, they won't make as much money and be unable to continue. How do you implement change into a series where a big part of its audience struggles with the thought of change? Keeping the same locations throughout the show you have to do by default, but what about other aspects to the show? Specifically, the technology used to create the show in the first place? Well, to me, there's one big way in which change is implemented completely naturally into the show, and that is the music in Series 3. The music in Thomas and Friends is bloody spectacular. Not just its theme tune, which is so iconic I'm certain almost everyone knows it, but the soundtrack as a whole is fantastic. Composers Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell understood good music would be appreciated in kids' media, and their contributions to the series should not go underappreciated. My favourite soundtrack composed by them was the one they did for Series 3, big shocker there. And one thing I love about this soundtrack that I hardly see anybody talk about is the combination of old and new music for the show. What do I mean by that? In the last two series, Mike and Junior composed the soundtrack via the Roland Jupiter 6 synthesizer, which was fitting for an 80s television series. However, after Series 2 wrapped up in 1986, the series went on a break, and in that time, thanks to Britt Allcroft, gained rapid success in both America and Japan. When the production team returned to produce a third series in 1990, the budget was much bigger and allowed them to really push the envelope with what they could do with the props and the set designs. It allowed Mike and Junior to upgrade to using the EMU Proteus 2 Orchestral. You'll notice a difference in character themes from before with Series 3, with how they kept the same melody, but the mood is different. However, what they also did for Series 3 is combine both the themes of the old Roland synthesizer and the new Proteus Orchestral. Switching to a new and improved instrument for your show's new season is once again inevitable, and the change, as mentioned before, could become alienating to the people who have become so used to the Roland synthesizer. So, you can almost see this as the show keeping a couple of familiar synth songs while gradually including more of the orchestral pieces. One of my favourite pieces of music in Series 3 is Gordon's theme in the beginning of Time for Trouble, taking his synth-composed theme from the last two series. And adding an orchestral horn very subtly in the background to create a sense of grandiosity while still being very familiar. Then, as Gordon leaves the station on his next journey, the synth disappears as the orchestral horn takes over with a calm but emotional piece of his theme, as if we are saying goodbye to the synthesizer as we move on to new horizons with the orchestral, saying, "We are still the same show, but it's time to change." And so, when we next hear Gordon's theme in Gordon and the Famous Visitor, it's played completely by the orchestral we've become accustomed to. Fantastic stuff. And this is something they stick to throughout the entirety of Series 3, using hybrid themes for characters comprised of both new and old instruments, while gradually moving on to the newer ones. Not to mention Mike and Junior further starting to really test the capabilities of the orchestral, and the results are fantastic. Also, do you guys remember the jingle that led into the end credits of the show back in Series 1 and 2? Well, they almost completely refrain from using that jingle and have episodes end in a more conclusive way with their music. But they do use it once. The episode Mavis is the very last time we ever hear the familiar song lead into the credits, as what I believe to be the very last link to the music of the yesteryears. One final hurrah to Thomas the Tank Engine in the 80s.
She took the trucks to the sheds and scuttled home to the quarry as quickly as she could.
And lo and behold, by the time Series 4 rolls around, the Roland music pieces are nowhere to be heard, allowing Mike and Junior to take full advantage of the Proteus's musical features. Because now, we have become adjusted to this brand new instrument. Perhaps we may not even realise that we did. All thanks to having those hybrid themes in Series 3 reassuring us that this is still the same show we're familiar with, and that while it sounds different, it doesn't mean it has to be scary. Change doesn't have to be scary. It can be a benefit. If it's done gradually, we as people on the spectrum are capable of dealing with it. And if we can become used to changes like music in our favourite TV shows, we can adjust to other changes in our life. We will see how it benefits us, because when Series 4 began, boy oh boy was that change in music a benefit.